Alright guys, this is a very simple fix, pretty much anyone can do for a 4L60, 65, or I guess technically a 70E also. We are in the Cadillac Escalade. I bought this thing super cheap and we're just doing the minor repairs that it needs. The transmission was the typical 4L60. This has a 65 in it, but the 4L60 sluggish shift. Not confident at all in the shifts. So the problem I'm talking about on these 4L60/4L65s is kind of mushy shifts. 1-2 shifts. Sometimes they'll actually, they call it the slide bang. So they'll actually shift. You can hear it make the shift, and then it'll feel like it shifts again as it actually goes in gear. So it's kind of a delayed shift. It's just not firm shifts. Typically you like a nice firm quick shift, and they are notorious for not having nice firm quick shifts. They're just mushy. So a very easy fix. It's easy to do. Pretty much anyone could do this with a little bit of knowledge and patience. We're actually gonna throw this one up on the lift right now. We have a kit. It's the Corvette Servo. You can buy them on Amazon, you can buy them on eBay, you can buy them all over the place. A bunch of different companies make them. If you do get one, just make sure you get one. It's the complete kit, comes with the O-rings and the sealing seals. Sealing seals, that didn't make any sense. They have sealing rings. So I'll show you the kit I got. It was off Amazon. It was roughly 20 bucks shipped. I've already used it once. It made a huge improvement in that transmission. My phone just keeps going off. So we're gonna throw it in this one and see how much of an improvement it makes on this one. Pulling into the garage here, and I mean, that's kind of the biggest thing. If you don't have a lift to put it up on, you gotta lay on your back. And definitely a little bit more difficult if you don't have a lift. So here's the part I got. Like I said, it was off Amazon. It's roughly $20 shipped. It has the O-rings, has the sealing rings in there somewhere. Yeah, there they are, floating around inside there. So it's 2 pieces of aluminum pretty much, pistons, apply pistons. And like I said, I did just do another one. And here is actually the parts, the old parts. Here's the 2 sealing rings, one there, one there. There's the O-ring, and there's another O-ring which you pretty much destroy getting it out. This actually slides over there, and you can see how the sealing ring is on there, and you can see how loose this is, and that's kind of what happens. These things, for one, those sealing rings wear and deteriorate, and they just don't seal like they should. 2 is, if you look at the size, we'll open this in a second, but see the size of that and the size of this. This one is way bigger, and you would think bigger is better. Not necessarily. It takes more fluid to fill up that cavity to apply this. So this is, they call it the Corvette Servo. It's just an upgrade for the factory piece. They're new. They don't have wear on them. The sealing rings are new. The O-rings are new, and it's a smaller diameter. So let's get under the truck here. We do have it up on the lift. We're gonna need our flashlight. So right there is actually where we're gonna be working. That round boss right there, right behind the fill tube, dipstick fill tube. So in order to do this, we gotta make some room. We need to take this heat shield off right here beside the cat, and there's 2, looks like they're 13 millimeter. The last one was 10 millimeter, but we'll take those 2 bolts out, get rid of this shield, and then we'll have access to that servo cover. And by the way, another thing we're getting ready to do here is put valve cover gaskets on. As you can see, this thing is covered in oil. All right, we got our light set up. Like I said, the first step is get rid of the shield here. This particular one happens to be, it's a 2006, and it happens to be a 13 millimeter. So there's a bolt here and one back here. If you have been running this like we just did, This is the catalytic converter. It will be hot, so watch you don't get burned on that. Transmission could still be, it could be warm. This one's actually, it's not even really hot. So let's get this shield off and then we'll tackle that servo. Those two bolts out, the shield just kind of pulls right down out of the way. Actually, this one's different. Goes back here and bolts on back here. So we'll have to unhook that. Huh. It's got the exhaust bracket on it. This one's slightly different. So years may change things a little bit. The vent tube's actually hanging down too, so we'll get that reattached back up there. Let's get this back popped off, then we'll get this shield out of the way. With that shield out of the way, the very first thing you're going to want to do is clean around here. This has O-rings in it, and that's a direct port inside the transmission. So we need to clean any settlement out of there, corrosion, whatever. We'll take some, we got our air gun here. Blow out around it, take a rag, wipe it, whatever you got to do to make sure that's clean enough to get out of there. For this next step, you're going to need a pry bar. It doesn't take much pressure, so we'll just pry against the cat here, nice and gentle. But pretty much you're gonna pry in on the middle of that servo. As you can see, it slides in. Right here, there's a snap ring that goes into the housing here. So we'll pry in, take a screwdriver, and release that snap ring, get it out. It'll just curl right out, and then we'll release the pressure on the servo, and that'll allow that to come out. We are going to put a drain pan under here because there will be a little bit of fluid that comes out. All right, as you can see, the snap ring came out off nice. It's actually hanging there, and we'll relieve the pressure. Here's the snap ring, and like I said, you can see that servo going in and out. So we'll clean that out a little bit better again, probably with some air, nice and gentle, and then we'll pull the servo cover off. And there's a piece in behind, and that's when our fluid's going to leak out too. So let's get that done and I'll catch back up. So we got that cleaned off. There isn't tremendous pressure here, so you might have to take a screwdriver. There's our fluid. Let that drain for a second. There is a blue O-ring on this outside cover that most of the time gets destroyed by pulling it out. We do have a replacement to go back in it. One good thing is our fluid is nice and clean and red. We'll let that drain for a minute, and then we'll just work this out. Nice and gentle, like, so we don't scrape or scar anything. Sometimes you can put a pair of pliers on this outer hub and work that back and forth a little bit too. As you can see, as that you pry that back, it does pretty much destroy that O-ring, so definitely make sure you have a new one to go back in its place. Let's get that cover off. All right, we'll pull that down. With that down and out, we'll throw the O-ring in there. Like I said, it's trash. So we'll take and set this upside down. We'll lay that on the lift arm. I think this is the 4th apply piston. We'll take it out. And as you can see, it's a little more flat on this side and concave on this side. So remember how that goes in. We'll set that inside here. I usually like to set them in there how they came out. So we'll set it in there the same way. Now, we're down to the servo itself. This whole thing, if you have room, you can pull it out in one piece, disassemble it over on the bench or wherever you're going to work on it. If not, you may have to, it takes a little doing. It is a kind of a tight area here. Let's see if we can get this one to slide out in one piece. All right, so once you get that to pop out, you have to wiggle a little bit, it'll come out, and this one will come out, no real issues. You will lose a little more fluid, just kind of wiggles out. We'll pull that out in one piece. It's gonna leak a little bit more, and we'll take it over to, I don't really have a workbench in here yet, but we'll put it on a piece of cardboard where the other one is, and we'll start disassembling this. All right, before we go over there and show you how to disassemble that, I will warn you there is a spring up inside here, right here. A lot of times it will stay in, sometimes it'll come out with that servo. You can leave it in there. There's a spot where it kind of sits on, so we'll just leave that in there. When you go to reassemble, just make sure that spring is where it needs to be. Before we go reassembling, we'll definitely clean up that bore, make sure there's no crud or anything that gets in there. All right guys, we got our new part here opened. Here's the other one I did a while back. Here is the one we just took out. And again, here's the sealing rings. We'll get them out without messing them up. We'll flip it upside down, just kind of dump them out. There's another one in there. You don't want to mess these up. So there's the sealing ring and there's the sealing ring. They are cut, and that's once they spread open. There's two tapers. Let me get them. There's two tapers there that mesh together, and once they get pressure on them in that bore, they seal up nice and tight. So we'll set those aside. Like I said, here is the new blue O-ring that you're going to need for the cover. We'll set that aside. And here's the actual two pieces that we're going to use. So pretty much we need to disassemble this. It's very simple. Don't let it scare you. It's not anything. Anyone can do this. If you made it this far, you can definitely disassemble and reassemble this. So pretty much all we're going to reuse is the clip here, the spring and the washer. We're going to reuse this apply pin. And there's a snap ring here, and there's also this metal piece. The rest of this gets discarded. So we'll go ahead and pull this off. And again, you can see the wear in there. Here's the sealing ring, and you can feel there's absolutely no resistance. There's actually a little bit of play there. So that was definitely worn. As you can see, it's the same as that piece. So we'll set that down here. Here's the old sealing ring. Right there's the split. We don't really need to worry about any of that. I'm just showing you how it works. So the next thing we're going to do is you can actually use your fingers because this spring is not too tight. We're going to push down. There's an E-clip. You can see it on the end of that shaft. We'll push down on this washer, pop that E-clip off. We'll pull the spring and washer out, and then this pin will slide out. All right guys, I got a tripod here. I always forget I have this, and I really probably need to get a headgear or whatever you call it, but I'll turn this around so you can see. We're going to slightly push down on this spring. It does not have very much tension at all. We'll take our screwdriver and pop our E-clip. You don't want it to go flying like that one did though, so we need to locate that. Again, there's not much tension on there. We'll actually slip this washer off and this spring off. We'll set these over here. And now our apply pin, you're going to lose a lot more fluid when that happens. Our pin comes right out. We'll set that aside too. All right, we were able to track that E-clip down. There it is. So we'll set that aside. Try not to let it go flying because they are a pain to find. They fly everywhere. So next, the easiest way I found is a pair of vice grips with some flat pads on there. We're going to stick this in there. We're going to slightly compress right here. That's enough. Doesn't need much. There's another snap ring. I have a little pick tool that points back towards you. Keep from losing my other stuff here. We'll just pick that out. So I'll show you. Just hook on that snap ring. We'll kind of pull that right out. You can walk that right around. You can take your tool, just walk it right around. It'll pop right out. It's split. So we'll set that aside. And now we're just going to release. We're done with that tool. We'll release this. There's not a ton of pressure on this either. But as you can see, it comes apart as soon as you release it. Set that aside. So now this rubber rubber washer type thing comes off. There's a large spring inside. We'll set that on there. And this is the other piece that we're actually gonna discard. And that's it. That's completely disassembled. Now we're ready to just clean everything up and start putting it back together. All right, we got everything cleaned up. We're ready to start putting back together. So we'll take our 2 new pieces. We'll pull that piece off. We don't have our sealing rings on there yet, so as you can see, they're pretty loose without it. Here's the piece we need first. This piece goes with the spring and the washer. This goes right together. We'll take our vice grips again, slip it inside, compress it. We'll take our snap ring and we'll work that right around just like we took it out. Reverse procedure. You can actually run that right in with your fingers. Snaps right into place. We'll release it. That's all back together. Like I said, guys, this is super simple. There's quite a few steps, but it's very, very simple. Once you do one, you won't even need directions to do the next one. So we have that cleaned off. We'll put our apply pin back through. Sometimes they are a little snug. Gotta slip, move them around, line this piece up with this piece. We got that back in. Now we're ready to take our spring and washer that we took off. We'll put that back over. And again, this spring is not very strong, so we can actually compress that with our thumb and just pop this snap ring back on. It will be helpful for this to have a pair of pliers to squeeze that back on. We're probably gonna have to do that. Let's see if I can do it with my fingers. Pop that down. With the E-clip, you can actually get it started and it'll hold pressure. And then we'll just take, yeah, it's gonna be a lot. Well, I got a pair of vice grips right here. And that just snaps right in place. Take our screwdriver and just make sure it's fully seated. Yep. Completely in. You look at that. Now, this is all back together. The E-clip's on there. It's holding that washer and that spring. This is completely back together. We're almost done. So, next step is to, again, make sure everything's clean. We'll get another clean rag and wipe this down. Then we'll put our sealing rings on. Then we can actually slip this back up into the transmission. Once you have it all cleaned up, we are going to use some fresh, clean transmission fluid to lubricate the sealing rings and the shaft. Again, this is probably a cheaper kit. Seems to work fine. Some of the more expensive ones probably come with a new pin and maybe some other parts, but this comes with the sealing rings, the O-rings, and the 2 metal pieces, and it seems to work wonders in these transmissions. So we have that cleaned up. Again, pay attention to what fluid you use. This is Dextron 6 because this is a 2006. Some of it takes Dextron 3. Whatever yours takes. We'll open this up. We'll take a little bit of clean fluid here. Lubricate this. We'll take our sealing ring, lubricate that a little bit. Be careful when you put these on, you don't damage them. They just go in the groove, they overlap, and then when you push pressure, they seal together. So watch you don't catch your finger on where they go together. Same with the bigger one. It goes in this larger groove, of course. But kind of the same deal. We'll pull it apart here. Snaps right into place. Overlaps. We'll get a little bit more fluid here. Hopefully you can see me good. I'll come back over. We'll lubricate this. Don't need a ton. Just keep this stuff lubricated as it goes together. So we'll take this piece here. I'm not sure. I think one of them's the second shift, one's the third shift. I think the outer one's the fourth apply. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not a transmission rebuilding guy, but I just know how to put this part together. So we'll lubricate that inside bore. This goes on, compresses that sealing ring. You want to be nice and careful putting this on so you don't damage it. But you can see how much tighter that is. We can actually turn it upside down and it doesn't come off. These, they fall right apart. Like if you turn this one upside down, it falls right off. So that's wore out. This one, it's nice and tight. So we have that on there. We'll lubricate this O-ring. Again, we're going to clean the housing out, but this is done. It's ready to go back in. All right, so this is how it's going to look when you're ready to go back together. Every once in a while, if you don't have enough room, you got to pull this outer piece out and then you can slip it back on when it goes in the trans. But we had enough room to take it out like this, so we should be able to put it back like this without any real issues. We have everything cleaned up, so now it's just a matter of reaching up in there, putting this in, and then going straight in the bore with that pin. And don't forget, I'll put my GoPro up in there. I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not, but there is that spring and you can see what the inside of that bore looks like. So there we go. Yeah, I guess you can kind of see in there. So everything's in place where it should be. Let me get this slid in there and then we'll pick up from there. Again, this we got it in place there. It should all go in nice and easy, no binding. So we have that pushed in. You can feel that, you know, it's spring loaded there against that spring. We'll take, we have all this cleaned up too, so our cover, and I believe this is our fourth apply piston. And again, it goes on, remember it goes on like that. One thing I do wish this kit came with is the sealing ring for this, but it didn't, so we're gonna put it back because we don't have one. So we'll put that on the pin and slip that on. And that actually seals inside this bore here. There's a machine surface. We have that lubed up. We have our new blue O-ring. So last, we put this cover on. And then we'll take our pry bar and you can push it pretty much back in with your fingers. The last little bit, it'll definitely take the pry bar, and then we'll take our snap ring and just run it in there and lock that in place. All right, guys, we have that pushed in. We got our snap ring locked in place. So we just let off, and now we are good to go. Job is complete. The only thing we have to do is attach that heat shield back on. We'll drop it down, top it off with fluid. That is it. We have our shield back on. It doesn't get much easier than that with a transmission fix or repair or whatever improvement. You don't have to drop the pan. You don't have to go inside the valve body. It's all external. I mean, it really, really is a very simple job. Most people can handle themselves. The only issue is some chassis, there's not quite as much room. You may have to actually take the cross member loose and lower it down, and or if it might have a bigger cat there or something, so you might have to move the exhaust. But on this 2006 Escalade ESV, very easy to do. Doesn't take very long at all. So let's give it a test drive and see how it works. All right, guys, we're out for a test drive in the Escalade. Made such a difference. Time will tell, but I really think it's gonna last now. It made a huge improvement. So if you have any question, you think the trans is just too far gone, and it may be, it's not gonna work for every single trans. Obviously, if you have major issues going on inside your trans, this fix is not gonna restore the transmission or rebuild it. So it is what it is, but I would definitely, for the price, I would try this kit first, the Corvette Servo. Like I said, very easy to do, a little intimidating at first, but definitely worth the effort. And it seemed to fix this one. It works very well now. All right, guys, if you like the content, please subscribe. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good day. We have a lot more to come.